the Mahabharata of Krishna-Dwaipayana Vyasa. Translated into English prose from the original Sanskrit text by Pratap Chandra Roy C.I.E. This free ebook has been downloaded from holybooks.com. Bhishma Parva. Section 61, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Sanjaya said, and Drona's son, and Bhurisravas and Chitrasena O sire, and the son of Samyamani also, all fought with Subhadra's son. And while fighting alone with 5 tigers among men, people beheld him possessed of exceeding energy like a young lion fighting with 5 elephants. And no one among them equalled Krishna's son in sureness of aim, in bravery, in prowess, in lightness of hand or in knowledge of weapons. And beholding his son, that chastiser of foes thus struggling and displaying his prowess in battle, Partha set up a leonine roar. And seeing thy grandson O king, thus afflicting thy host, thy warriors O monarchs surrounded him on all sides. Then that smiter of foes, the son of Subhadra, depending upon his prowess and might, advanced with undepressed heart against the Dhartashtra host. And while battling with the foe in that conflict, his mighty bow endued with the effulgence of the sun was seen by all to be incessantly stretched for striking. And piercing the son of Drona with 1 shaft, and Salya with 5, he overthrew the standard of Samyamani's son with 8 shafts. And with another sharp-edged arrow he cut off the mighty dart of golden staff resembling a snake, that was hurled at him by Somadatta's son. And the air of Arjuna, baffling in the very sight of Salya his hundreds of terrible shafts, slew his 4 steeds. Thereupon Bhurisravas and Salya, and Drona's son and Samyamani and Sala, struck with the fear at the strength of arms displayed by Krishna's son, could not stay before him. Then O great king, the Trigatas and the Madras with the Kekayas, numbering 25,000 urged by thy son, all of whom were foremost of men accomplished in the science of arms and who were incapable of defeat by force in battle, surrounded Kiritin with his son for slaying them both. Then O king, that vanquisher of foes, the commander of the Pandava army, the prince of the Panchalas beheld the cars of the father and the son thus surrounded by the foe. Supported by many thousands of elephants and cars, and by 100,000s of cavalry and infantry, and stretching his bow in great wrath, he advanced against that division of the Madras and the Kekayas, O chastiser of foes, leading his troops with him. And that division of the Pandava army, protected by that renowned and firm bowman and consisting of cars, elephants and cavalry, looked resplendent as it advanced for the encounter. And while proceeding towards Arjuna, that perpetuator of Panchala's race struck Saradwat's son on his shoulder joint with 3 arrows. And piercing the Madrakas then with 10 sharp shafts, he speedily slew the protector of Kritavarman's rear. And that chastiser of foes then, with a shaft of broad head, slew Damana the heir of the high-souled Paurava. Then the son of Samyamani pierced the Panchala prince incapable of defeat in the battle with 10 shafts, and his charioteer also with 10 shafts. Then that mighty bowman, thus severely pierced, licked with his tongue the corners of his mouth and cut off his enemy's bow with a broad-headed shaft of excessive sharpness. And soon the prince of Panchala afflicted his foe with 25 arrows and then slew his steeds O king, and then both the protectors of his wings. Then O bull of Bharata's race, Samyamani's son standing on that car whose steeds were slain, looked at the son of the renowned king of the Panchalas. Then taking up a terrible scimitar of the best kind made of steel, Samyamani's son walking on foot approached Drupada's son staying on his car. And the Pandavas, soldiers and Drishtadhyumna also of Prishata's race beheld him coming like a wave and resembling a snake fallen from the skies. And he whirled his sword and looked like the sun and advanced with the tread of an infuriate elephant. The prince of Panchala then excited with rage, quickly taking up a mace smashed the head of Samyamani's son thus advancing towards him, sharp-edged scimitar in grasp and shield in hand, as soon as the latter, having crossed the shooting distance, was near enough to his adversary's car. And then, O king, while falling down deprived of life, his blazing scimitar and shield loosened from his grasp, fell down with his body on the ground. And the high-souled son of the Panchala king, of terrible prowess, having slain his foe with his mace, won great renown. And when that prince, that mighty warrior and great bowman was thus slain, loud cries of, "Oh and alas!" arose among thy troops, O sire. Then Samyamani, excited with rage upon beholding his own son slain, impetuously rushed towards the prince of Panchala, who was incapable of defeat in battle. And all the kings of both the Kuru and the Pandava armies beheld those two princes and foremost of warriors engaged in battle. Then that slayer of hostile heroes Samyamani, excited with wrath, struck Prishata's son with 3 shafts like the conductor of an elephant striking a mighty elephant with hooks. And so Salya also, that ornament of assemblies, excited with wrath, struck the heroic son of Prishata on his breast. And then commenced another battle there. Thus ends the 61st section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 62, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, I regard destiny to be superior to exertion, O Sanjaya, inasmuch as the army of my son is continually slaughtered by the army of the Pandavas. Thou always speakest, O Sutta, of my troops as being slaughtered, and thou always speakest of the Pandavas as both unslain and cheerful. Indeed, O Sanjaya, thou speakest of mine as deprived of manliness, felled and falling and slaughtered, although they are battling to the best of their powers and striving hard for victory. Thou always speakest to me of the Pandavas as obtaining victory and mine as becoming weaker and weaker. O child, I am incessantly hearing of countless cause of unbearable and poignant grief on account of Duryodhana's doing. I do not see, O Sanjaya, the means by which the Pandavas may be weakened and sons of mine may obtain the victory in battle. Sanjaya said, This mighty evil heart proceeded from thee, O king. Listen now with patience to the great slaughter of men, elephants, steeds and warriors. Dhrishtadyumna, afflicted by Salya with 9 shafts, afflicted in return the ruler of Madras with many shafts made of steel. And then we beheld the prowess of Prishata's son to be highly wonderful, inasmuch as he speedily checked Salya, that ornament of assemblies. The battle between them lasted for only a short space of time. While angrily engaged in combat, none beheld even a moment's rest taken by any of them. Then, O king, Salya in that battle cut off Dhrishtadyumna's bow with a broad-headed shaft of sharp edge and excellent temper. And he also covered him, O Bharata, with a shower of arrows like rain-charged clouds pouring their drops on the mountain breast during the season of rains. And while Dhrishtadyumna was being thus afflicted, Abhimanyu, excited with wrath, rushed impetuously towards the car of the ruler of the Madras. Then the wrathful son of Krishna, of immeasurable soul, obtaining the car of the ruler of the Madras within shooting distance, pierced Artayani with 3 sharp shafts. Then the warriors of thy army, O king, desirous of opposing the son of Arjuna in battle, speedily surrounded the car of the ruler of Madras. And Duryodhana and Vikarna, and Dusasana and Vivinseti, and Dharmarjna and Dusala, and Chitrasena and Durmukha, and Satyabrata, blessed be thou, and Purumitra, O Bharata, these, protecting the car of the ruler of the Madras, stationed themselves there. Then Bhimasena, excited with wrath, and Dhrishtadyumna of Prishata's race, and the 5 sons of Draupadi and Abhimanyu, and the twin sons of Madri and Pandu, these 10 opposed those 10 warriors of the Dhritarashtra army, shooting, O king, divers kinds of weapons. And they approached and encountered one another in battle, desirous of slaying one another, in consequence, O king, of thy wicked policy. And when those 10 warriors, excited with wrath, engaged with the 10 others in that awful battle, the other warriors of both thy army and of the foes, all stood as spectators. And those mighty warriors, shooting diverse kinds of weapons and roaring at one another smote one another fiercely. With wrath engendered in their breasts, desirous of slaying one another, they uttered fierce shouts, challenging one another. And jealous of one another, O king, those kinsfolk united together, encountered one another wrathfully, shooting mighty weapons. And wonderful to say, Duryodhana, excited with rage, pierced Drishtadyumna in that battle with 4 sharp shafts. And Dharmarjna pierced him with 20, and Chitrasena with 5, and Durmukha with 9, and Dusaha with 7, and Vivinseti with 5, and Dusasana with 3 shafts. Then, O great king, that scorcher of foes, viz. Prishata's son, pierced each of them in return with 5 and 20 shafts, displaying his lightness of hand. And Abhimanyu, O Bharata, pierced Satyavrata and Purumitra each with 10 shafts. Then the sons of Madri, those delighters of their mother, covered their uncle with showers of sharp arrows. And all this seemed wonderful. Then, O monarch, Salya covered his nephews, those 2 foremost of our warriors, desirous of counteracting their uncle's feats with arrows, but the sons of Madri wavered not. Then the mighty Bhimasena, the son of Pandu, beholding Duryodhana and desirous of ending the strife, took up his mace. And beholding the mighty armed Bhimasena with a praised mace and looking like the crested Kailasa mount, thy sons fled away in terror. Duryodhana, however, excited with wrath, urged the Magadha division consisting of 10,000 elephants of great activity. Accompanied by that elephant division and placing the ruler of Magadha before him, King Duryodhana advanced towards Bhimasena. Beholding that elephant division advancing towards him, Vrikodara, mace in hand, jumped down from his car uttering a loud roar like that of a lion. And armed with that mighty mace, which was endued with great weight and strength of adamant, he rushed towards that elephant division like the destroyer himself with wide open mouth. And the mighty armed Bhimasena, endued with great strength, slaying elephants with his mace, wandered over the field like the slayer of Vritra among the Danava host. And with the loud shouts of the roaring Bhima, shouts that made the mind and the heart to tremble with fear, the elephants, crouching close, lost all power of motion. Then the sons of Draupadi and that mighty warrior, the son of Subhadra, and Nakula and Sahadeva, and Drishtadyumna of Prishata's race, protecting Bhima's rear, rushed behind him, checking all by scattering their arrowy showers like the very clouds pouring rain on the mountain breast. And those Pandava warriors struck off the heads of their foes battling from the backs of elephants, with well-tempered and keen-edged shafts of diverse forms. And the heads of elephant riders and arms decked with ornaments, and hands with iron hooks in grasp, falling fast, resembled a stony shower. And the headless trunks of elephant riders on the necks of the beasts they rode, looked like headless trees on mountain summits. And we beheld mighty elephants felled and falling, slain by Drishtadyumna, the high-souled son of Prishata. Then the ruler of the Magadhas, in that battle, urged his elephant resembling Airavata himself, towards the car of Subhadra's son. Beholding that mighty elephant advancing towards him, that slayer of hostile heroes, the brave son of Subhadra slew it with a single shaft. And when the ruler of the Magadhas was thus deprived of his elephant, that conqueror of hostile cities, viz., the son of Krishna, then struck off that king's head with a broad-headed shaft with silver wings. And Bhimasena, the son of Pandu, having penetrated that elephant division, began to wander over the field, crushing those beasts around him like Indra himself crushing the mountains. And we beheld elephants slain in that battle by Bhimasena, each with only one stroke of his mace, like hills riven by thunder. And many elephants, huge as hills, were slain there, having their tusks broken, or temples, or bones, or backs, or frontal globes. And others, O king, deprived of life, lay there with foaming mouths. And many mighty elephants with frontal globes completely smashed, vomited large quantities of blood. And some from fear, laid themselves down on the ground like so many hillocks, and smeared with the fat and blood of elephants and almost bathed in their marrow, Bhima wandered over the field like the destroyer himself, club in hand. And Vrikodara, whirling that mace of his which was wet with the blood of elephants, became terrible and awful to behold, like the wielder of Pinaka armed with Pinaka. And those huge tuskers, while thus crushed by the angry Bhima, suddenly fled away afflicted, crushing thy own ranks. And these mighty bowmen and warriors, headed by Subhadra's son, all the while protected that battling hero whirling his gory mace wet with the blood of elephants, like the celestials protecting the wielder of the thunderbolt. Of terrible soul, Bhimasena then looked like the destroyer himself. Indeed, O Bharata, putting forth his strength on all sides mace in arms, we beheld Bhimasena then to resemble Sankara himself dancing at the end of the yuga, and his fierce, heavy, and sounding mace to resemble the club of Yama, and possessed of the sound of Indra's bolt. And that gory mace of his, smeared with marrow and hair, resembled also the angry Rudra's Pinaka while he is engaged in destroying all creatures. As a herdsman chastises his herd of cattle with a goad, so did Bhima smite that elephant division with that mace of his. And while thus slaughtered by Bhima with his mace, and with shafts by those that protected his rear, the elephants ran on all sides, crushing the cars of thy own army. Then driving away those elephants from the field like a mighty wind driving away masses of clouds, Bhima stood there like wielder of the trident on a crematorium. Thus ends the 62nd section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 63, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Sanjaya said, when that elephant division was exterminated, thy son Duryodhana urged his entire army, commanding the warriors to slay Bhimasena. Then the entire army at the command of thy son rushed towards Bhimasena, who was uttering fierce shouts. That vast and unlimited host, difficult of being borne by the very gods, incapable of being crossed like the surging sea on the day of full moon or new moon, abounding with cars, elephants, and steeds, resounding with the blare of conches and the beat of drums, numbering untold foot soldiers and warriors, and shrouded by the dust raised, that very sea of hostile troops incapable of being agitated, thus coming towards him, Bhimasena checked in battle, O king, like the bank resisting the ocean. That feat, O king, which we beheld of Bhimasena the high-souled son of Pandu, was exceedingly wonderful and superhuman. With his mace he fearlessly checked all those kings angrily rushing towards him with their steeds and cars, and elephants. Checking that vast force with mace, that foremost of mighty men Bhima, stood in that fierce melee, immovable as the mountain Meru. And in that dreadful, fierce and terrific encounter, his brother and sons and Drishtadhyumna of Prishata's race and the sons of Draupadi and Abhimanyu, and the unvanquished Sikhundin, these mighty warriors did not abandon him from fear. Taking up his massive and weighty mace made of Sika iron, he rushed towards the warriors of thy army like the destroyer himself armed with his club. And pressing crowds of cars and crowds of horsemen down into the earth, Bhima wandered over the field like the fire at the end of the yuga. And Pandu's son of infinite prowess, crushing crowds of cars with the impetus of his thighs and slaying thy warriors in battle, wandered like the destroyer himself at the end of the yuga. And he began to grind thy troops with the greatest ease like an elephant crushing a forest of reeds, and dragging car warriors down from their cars and warriors fighting from the backs of horses, and foot soldiers as they stood on the ground in the army of thy son. The mighty armed Bhimasena slew them all with his mace like the wind crushing trees by its force. And that mace of his, slaying elephants and steeds, became smeared with fat, marrow, flesh and blood, and looked exceedingly terrible. And with the bodies of slain men and cavalry lying scattered about, the field of battle wore the appearance of the abode of Yama. and the terrible and slaughtering mace of Bhimasena, resembling the fierce bludgeon of death and endued with the effulgence of Indra's bolt, looked like Pinaka of the angry Rudra while destroying living creatures. Indeed, that mace of the high-souled son of Kunti, who was slaying all around, looked fiercely resplendent like the bludgeon of the destroyer himself at the time of the universal dissolution. And beholding him thus routing that large army repeatedly and advancing like death's self, all the warriors became cheerless. Whithersoever the son of Pandu, raising his mace, cast his eyes, in consequence of his look alone, O Bharata, all the troops there seemed to melt away. Beholding Vrikodara of terrible deeds thus routing the army and unvanquished by even so large a force, and devouring the hostile division like the destroyer himself with wide open mouth, Bhimasena speedily came towards him on his car of solar effulgence and rattle loud as that of the clouds, shrouding the welkin with his arrowy showers like a vapory canopy charged with rain. Then the mighty armed Bhimasena, beholding Bhishma thus advancing like the destroyer himself with wide open mouth, rushed towards him excited with wrath. At that moment, that foremost hero of Sin's race, viz., Satyaki of Shoraim, fell upon the grandsire, slaying his enemies along the way with his firm bow and causing thy son's army to tremble. And all the combatants who belonged to thy army were then, O Bharata, unable to impede the progress of that hero thus advancing with his steeds of silvery hue and scattering his sharp shafts furnished with handsome wings. At that time, the Rakshasa Alambusha only succeeded in piercing him with 10 shafts. But piercing Alambusha in return with 4 shafts, the grandson of Sin proceeded on his car. Beholding that hero of Vrishni's race thus advancing and rolling as it were, through the very midst of his enemies and checking as he proceeded the foremost of Kuru warriors, and repeatedly uttering loud shouts in that battle, thy warriors then, like masses of clouds pouring rain in torrents on the mountain breast, showered their arrowy downpours on him. They were however incapable of impeding the progress of that hero who looked like the noonday sun in his glory. And there was none who was not then cheerless, save Somadatta's son, O king. And Burisra was the son of Somadatta, O Bharata, beholding the warriors of his own side driven away, rushed against Satyaki from desire of battle, taking up his bow of fierce impetus. Thus ends the 63rd section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 64, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Sanjaya said, Then, O king, Burisra was, excited with great wrath, pierced Satyaki with 9 arrows like the conductor of an elephant piercing an elephant with the iron hook. Satyaki also, of immeasurable soul, in the very sight of all the troops, pierced the Kaurava warrior with 9 shafts. Then King Duryodhana, accompanied by his uterine brothers, surrounded Somadatta's son, thus striving in battle. Similarly the Pandavas, also of great energy, quickly surrounding Satyaki in that battle, took up their positions around him. And Bhimasena, excited with wrath, and with mace upraised, O Bharata, encountered all thy sons headed by Duryodhana. With many thousands of cars and excited with wrath and vindictiveness, thy son Nandaka pierced Bhimasena of great might with keen-edged and sharp-pointed shafts whetted on stone and winged with the feathers of the Kanka bird. Then Duryodhana, O king, in that great battle, excited with wrath, struck Bhimasena in the breast with 9 shafts. Then the mighty armed Bhima of great strength mounted on his own excellent car and addressing his charioteer Vaizoka said, These heroic and mighty sons of Dhritarashtra, all great car warriors, are exceedingly angry with me and desirous of slaying me in battle. I will slay all these today in thy sight without doubt. Therefore, O charioteer, guide my steed in battle with care. Having said this, O monarch, Pritha's son pierced thy son with sharp-pointed arrows decked with gold. And he pierced Nandaka in return with 3 arrows between his 2 breasts. Then Duryodhana, having pierced the mighty Bhima with 6 arrows, pierced Vaizoka in return with 3 other sharp arrows. And Duryodhana, O king, as if smiling the while, with 3 other sharp arrows cut off at the grasp the resplendent bow of Bhima in that battle. Bhima then, that bull among men, beholding his charioteer Vaizoka afflicted in that conflict with sharp shafts by thy son armed with the bow, and unable to bear it, drew another excellent bow excited with wrath, for the destruction of thy son O monarch. And excited with great wrath, he also took up an arrow with horseshoe head and furnished with excellent wings. And with that arrow Bhima cut off the excellent bow of the king. Then thy son, excited to the highest pitch of fury, leaving that broken bow aside speedily took up another that was tougher. And aiming a terrible shaft blazing as death's rod, the Kuru king excited with rage struck Bhimasena between his 2 breasts. Deeply pierced therewith and greatly pained, he sat down on the terrace of his car. And while seated on the terrace of his car he swooned away. Beholding Bhima thus unmanned, the illustrious and mighty warriors of the Pandava army headed by Abhimanyu could not bear it. And those warriors then, with great steadiness, showered on thy son's head a thick downpour of fierce shafts. Then the mighty Bhimasena, regaining consciousness, pierced Duryodhana at first with those shafts and then with 5. And that mighty bowman, the son of Pandu, then pierced Salya with 25 shafts furnished with golden wings. And pierced therewith, Salya was borne away from the battle. Then thy 14 sons, viz., Senapati, Sushena, Jalasandha, Sulochana, Ugra, Bhimaratha, Bhima, Viravahu, Eolupa, Durmukha, Dashtradasha, Vivitsu, Vikta, and Sama, then encountered Bhimasena in battle. United together, they rushed against Bhimasena and with eyes red in wrath, showering countless arrows they pierced him deeply. Then the heroic and mighty Bhimasena of strong arms, beholding thy sons, licking the corners of his mouth like a wolf in the midst of smaller creatures, fell upon them with the impetuosity of Gadura. And the son of Pandu then cut off the head of Senapati with a shaft having a horseshoe head. And with delighted soul and laughing the while, that mighty armed warrior piercing Jalasandha with 3 arrows dispatched him to Yama's abode. And next, smiting Sushena he sent him to the presence of death's self. And with a single broad-headed shaft he felled on the ground the head, handsome as the moon, of Ugra decked with turban and adorned with earrings. And in that battle, Pandu's son Bhima with 70 shafts dispatched Viravahu to the other world with his steeds and standard and charioteer. And smiling the while O king, Bhimasena quickly dispatched both the brothers Bhima and Bhimaratha also to Yama's abode. And then in that great battle in the very sight of all the troops, with an arrow of horseshoe head, Bhima dispatched Sulochana also to death's domain. Then the rest of thy sons that were there O king, beholding the prowess of Bhimasena, and while thus being struck by that illustrious warrior, all fled from battle from fear of Bhima. Then Santanu's son, addressing all the mighty warriors of his army said, that fierce bowman Bhima, excited with wrath in battle is slaying the mighty sons of Dhritarashtra and other heroic warriors united together, whatever their knowledge of weapons and whatever their bravery. Therefore seize ye all that son of Pandu. Thus addressed, all the troops of the Dhritarashtra army excited with rage, rushed towards Bhimasena endued with great might. And Bhagadatta O king, on his elephant of rent temples, suddenly rushed thither where Bhimasena was stationed. And thither to the combat he shrouded Bhima with his shafts whetted on stones so as to make him completely invisible like the clouds covering the sun. Those mighty warriors however, of the Pandava army, relying on the prowess of their own arms could not bear that shrouding of Bhima with the arrowy showers of Bhagadatta. They therefore, surrounding Bhagadatta on all sides, poured on him their arrowy downpours. And they pierced his elephant also with showers of shafts. And struck by all those mighty warriors with showers of fierce shafts of divers kinds that elephant O king, of the ruler of the Pragyotishas with blood trickling down his body became beautiful to behold on the field of battle, like a mass of clouds tinged with the rays of the sun. And that elephant with temporal juice trickling down, urged by Bhagadatta like the destroyer, ran with double his former speed, shaking the very earth with his tread. Then all those mighty warriors, beholding that terrible mien of the animal and regarding it irresistible, became cheerless. Then King Bhagadatta, that tiger among men, excited with rage, struck Bhimasena between his two breasts with a straight shaft. Deeply pierced by the king with that shaft, that great bowman and mighty warrior, with limbs deprived of sensation in consequence of a swoon, sat down on his car holding his flagstaff. And beholding those mighty warriors terrified and Bhimasena in a swoon, Bhagadatta of great prowess uttered a loud roar. Then, O king, that terrible Rakshasa Ghatotkacha, beholding Bhima in that state, became excited with rage and there and then disappeared from the view. And creating a terrible illusion enhancing the fears of the timid, he reappeared in a moment assuming a fierce form. Himself riding on an Airavata created by his powers of illusion, the other the elephants, Vis, Anjana, Vamana, and Mahapadma of blazing glory followed him. And those three mighty elephants, ridden by Rakshasas, were of huge form, with juice profusely trickling down in 3 lines and endued with great speed and prowess. Then Ghatotkacha urged his own elephant to battle, desirous, O chastiser of foes, of slaying Bhagadatta with his elephant. And those other elephants, excited with fury and each endued with 4 tusks, urged by Rakshasas of great strength, fell from all sides upon Bhagadatta's elephant and afflicted him with their tusks. And the elephant of Bhagadatta, thus afflicted by those elephants, already struck with arrows and feeling great pain, uttered loud cries that resembled the thunder of Indra. And hearing those terrible and loud cries of that roaring elephant, Bhishma, addressing Drona, Suyodhana and all the kings, said, "The mighty bowman Bhagadatta is battling with the wicked-souled son of Hidimva and hath fallen into great distress. That Rakshasa is of huge form and the king also is very wrathful. Engaged in battle, they would certainly prove each other's death." Loud shouts were also heard of the rejoicing Pandavas and the cries of agony of King Bhagadatta's terrified elephant. "Blessed be ye, let us all go there for rescuing the king, for if left unprotected in battle, he will soon give up his life. Ye warriors of great energy, do as I bid, even now. Ye sinless ones, make no delay. The combat deepens and becometh fierce, making the hair to stand on end. That commander of a division is high-born, endued with great bravery and devoted to us. Ye warriors of unfading glory, it is meet that his rescue should be effected by us." Hearing these words of Bhishma, all the kings of the Kuru army headed by Bharadvaja's son, desirous of rescuing Bhagadatta, proceeded with great speed to where the ruler of the Pragjyotishas was. And beholding the enemy advancing, the Panchalas with the Pandavas headed by Yudhishthira pursued them behind. Then that prince of Rakshasas, endued with great prowess, beholding that division of the enemy advance, uttered a fierce roar, deep as that of thunder. Hearing that roar of his and beholding those battling elephants, Santanu's son Bhishma once again addressed Bharadvaja's son and said, "I do not like to fight today with the wicked-souled son of Hidimva. Endued with great might and energy, he is at present well supported. He is incapable of being vanquished now by the wielder of the thunderbolt himself. Of sureness of aim, he is a great smiter. As regards ourselves, our animals are tired today. We have also been greatly mangled by Panchalas and the Pandavas. I do not like fresh encounter with the victorious Pandavas. Let the withdrawal of our army therefore be proclaimed today. Tomorrow we will fight with the foe." Hearing these words of the grandsire, the Kauravas, afflicted with the fear of Ghatotkacha and availing of the advent of night as a pretext, gladly did what the grandsire said. And after the Kauravas had withdrawn, the Pandavas, crowned with victory, uttered leonine roars, mingling them with the blare of conches and the notes of pipes. Thus did the battle take place that day, O Bharata, between the Kurus and the Pandavas headed by Ghatotkacha. And the Kauravas also, vanquished by the Pandavas and overcome with shame, retired to their own tents when night came. And those mighty warriors, the sons of Pandu, their bodies mangled with shafts and themselves filled with the result of the battle, proceeded walking towards their encampment with Bhimasena and Ghatotkacha, O monarch, at their head. And filled with great joy, O king, they worshipped those heroes. And they uttered divers kinds of shouts which were mingled with the notes of trumpets. And those high-souled warriors shouted, making the very earth tremble therewith and grinding as it were, O sire, the hearts of thy sons. And it was thus that those chastisers of foes, when night came, proceeded towards their tents. And King Duryodhana, cheerless at the death of his brothers, passed some time in thoughtfulness, overcome with grief and tears. Then, making all the arrangements for his camp according to the rules of military science, he began to pass the hours in meditation, scorched with grief and afflicted with sorrow on account of his slain brothers. Thus ends the 64th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 65, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Dhritarashtra said, hearing of those feats of the sons of Pandu which are incapable of being achieved by the gods themselves, my heart, O Sanjaya, is filled with fear and wonder. Hearing also of the humiliation of my sons in every way, great hath been my anxiety as to the consequence that will ensue. The words uttered by Vidura will no doubt consume my heart. Everything that hath happened seemeth to be due to destiny, O Sanjaya. The combatants of the Pandava army are encountering and smiting those best of warriors, having Bhishma for their head, those heroes conversant with every weapon. What ascetic penances have been performed by the high-souled and mighty sons of Pandu, what boon hath they obtained, O son, or what science is known to them, in consequence of which, like the stars in the firmament, they are undergoing no diminution. I cannot bear it that my army should be repeatedly slaughtered by the Pandavas. The divine chastisement, highly severe, hath fallen on me alone. Tell me everything truly, O Sanjaya, about that for which the sons of Pandu have become unslayable and mine slayable. I do not see the other shore of this sea of distress. I am like a man desirous of crossing the vastly deep ocean with my 2 arms alone. I certainly think that a great calamity hath overtaken my sons. Without doubt, Bhima will slay all my sons. I do not see that hero who is able to protect my sons in battle. The death of my sons in this battle, O Sanjaya, is certain. It behoveth thee therefore, O Sutha, to tell me who asketh thee everything about the true cause of all these. Beholding his own troops retreating from battle, what did Duryodhana do? And what old Bhishma and Drona and Kripa, and Suvala's son and Jayadratha, and that mighty bowman, Vis, Drona's son and Vikarna of great strength do? When also, O thou of great wisdom, my sons turned back from the fight, what, O Sanjaya, became the resolve of those high-souled warriors? Sanjaya said, listen, O king, with attention, and having listened, let it go to thy heart. Nothing in this is the result of incantation, nothing the result of illusion of any kind. Nor have the sons of Pandu created any new terrors. They are endued with might and they are fighting by fair means in this battle. Desirous of high fame, the sons of Pritha always do every act, including even the support of their lives agreeably to the way of morality. Endued with every kind of prosperity and possessed of great strength, they never desist from battle, keeping their eyes on righteousness. And victory is there where righteousness is. It is for this, O king, that the sons of Pritha are unslayable in battle and always victorious. Thy sons are of wicked souls and are addicted to sinfulness. They are cruel and wedded to mean acts. It is for this that they are being weakened in battle. Thy sons, O king, like despicable men, did many cruel and deceitful acts to the sons of Pandu. Disregarding, however, all those offences of thy sons, the sons of Pandu always concealed those acts, O elder brother of Pandu. Thy sons also, O king, on numerous occasions humiliated the Pandavas. Let them now reap the terrible fruit like poison, of that persistent course of sinfulness. That fruit should be enjoyed by thee also, O king, with thy sons and kinsmen, since thou, O king, could not be awakened even though counselled by thy well-wishers. Repeatedly forbidden by Vidura, by Bhishma, by the high-souled Drona, and by myself also, thou didst not understand, rejecting our words intended for thy good and worthy of thy acceptance, like a sick man rejecting the medicine prescribed. Accepting the views of thy sons, thou hadst regarded the Pandavas as already vanquished. Listen again, O king, to what thou hast asked me, viz., the true cause, O chief of the Bharatas, of the victory of the Pandavas. I will tell thee what I have heard, O chastiser of force. Duryodhana had asked the grandsire this very question. Beholding his brothers, almighty warriors, vanquished in battle, thy son Duryodhana, O Kaurava, with heart confounded with grief, repairing with humility during the night to the grandsire, possessed of great wisdom, asked him this question. Listen to me, O monarch, about it all. Duryodhana said, Drona and thou, and Salya and Kripa, and Drona's son, and Kritavarman the son of Hridika, and Sudakshina the ruler of the Kambojas, and Burisravas and Vikarna, and Bhagadatta of exceeding prowess, are all regarded as mighty warriors. All of these again are high-born, and prepared to throw away their lives in battle. It is my opinion that these are a match for even the three worlds united together. Even all the warriors of the Pandava army united together cannot bear your prowess. A doubt has arisen in my mind. Explain it to me who inquireth of thee. Who is it, relying on whom the Pandavas are vanquishing us repeatedly? Bhishma said, Listen, O king, to the words that I will speak unto thee, O thou of Kuru's race. Frequently wert thou addressed by me to the same effect, but thou didst not do what I said. Let peace be made with the Pandavas, O best of the Bharatas. I regard this to be beneficial both to the world and thee, O Lord. Enjoy this earth, O king, with thy brothers, and be happy, gratifying all thy well-wishers and delighting thy kinsfolk. Although I cried myself hoarse before this, thou didst not yet listen to me, O sire. Thou hadst always disregarded the sons of Pandu. The effect of all that hath now overtaken thee. Listen also, O king, from me as I speak of it, O Lord, to the reason why the Pandavas, whose achievements tire them not, are unslayable. There is not, was not, will not be the being in all the worlds who would, or will be able to vanquish the sons of Pandu, who are all protected by the wielder of Sanga. Listen truly, O thou that art conversant with morality, to that ancient history which was recited to me by sages of souls under control. In days of yore, all the celestials and the rishis united together, waited reverentially on the grandsire upon the mountains of Gandhamadana. And the Lord of all creatures, seated at his ease in their midst, beheld an excellent car stationed in the firmament blazing with effulgence. Having ascertained everything about it by meditation, joining his hands with restrained heart, Brahma with delighted soul made his salutations to the highest divine being. And the rishis and the celestials, beholding in the firmament the form thus displayed, all stood up with joined hands, their eyes fixed on that wonder of wonders. Worshipping him duly, Brahma, the foremost of all, conversant with Brahman, the creator of the universe, acquainted with the highest morality, uttered these high words. Thou art the glory of the universe for thy form. Thou art the Lord of the universe. O thou whose protection extendeth through the whole universe. O thou that art the universe for thy work. O thou that art thy soul under control. Thou art the Supreme Master of the universe. Thou art Vasudeva. Therefore I seek refuge in thee that art the soul of yoga and the highest divinity. Victory to thee that art the supreme God of the universe. Victory to thee that art ever employed in the good of the worlds. Victory to thee that art the Lord of yoga. Thee that art all-powerful. Victory to thee that art prior and subsequent to yoga. Having the lotus springing from thy navel, and having large expansive eyes, victory to thee that art Lord of lords of the universe. O Lord of the past, the present, and the future, victory to thee that art the embodiment of gentleness. Thee that art the Son of sons. O thou that art the receptacle of untold attributes. Victory to thee that art the refuge of all things. Thou art Narayana, thou art incapable of being understood. Victory to thee that art the wielder of the bow called Sanga. Victory to thee that art endued with every attribute. O thou that hast the universe for thy form. O thou that art ever hail. O Lord of the universe. O thou of mighty arms. Victory to thee that art always ready for benefiting the worlds. O great snake, O huge boar, O first cause, O thou of tawny locks, victory to thee that art almighty. O thou of yellow robes, O Lord of the cardinal and the subsidiary points of the compass. O thou that hast the universe for thy abode. O thou that art infinite. O thou that hast no decay. O thou that art the manifest. O thou that art the unmanifest. O thou that art the immeasurable space. O thou that hast all thy senses under control. O thou that always achievest what is good. O thou that art immeasurable. O thou that alone knowest thy own nature, victory to thee that art deep. O thou that art the giver of all wishes. O thou that art without end. O thou that art known as Brahma. O thou that art eternal. O thou that art the creator of all creatures. O thou that art ever successful. O thou whose acts always display wisdom. O thou that art conversant with morality. O thou that givest victory. O thou of mysterious self. O thou that art the soul of all yoga. O thou that art the cause of everything that hath sprung into existence. O thou that art the knowledge of the selves of all beings. O Lord of the worlds, victory to thee that art the creator of all beings. O thou that hast thyself for thy origin. O thou that art highly blessed. O thou that art the destroyer of everything. O thou that art the inspirer of all mental thoughts. Victory to thee that art dear to all conversant with Brahma. O thou that art busy in creation and destruction. O controller of all wishes. O Supreme Lord. O thou that art the cause of Amrita. O thou that art all existent. O thou that art the first that appears at the end of the Yuga. O thou that art the giver of victory. O divine Lord of the Lord of all creatures. O thou that hast the lotus springing from thy navel. O thou of mighty strength. O thou that art sprung from thyself. O thou that art the great elements in their primeval state. O thou that art the soul of all religious rites. Victory to thee that givest all. The goddess earth represents thy 2 feet, the cardinal and the subsidiary directions thy arms and the heavens thy head. I am thy form, the celestials constitute thy limbs, and the sun, the moon are thy 2 eyes. Ascetic austerities and truth born of morality and religious rites, constitute thy strength. Fire is thy energy, the wind is thy breath, and the waters have sprung from thy sweat. The twins Aswins constitute thy ears, and the goddess Saraswati is thy tongue. The Vedas are thy knowledge, and upon thee resteth this universe. O Lord of Yoga and Yogins, we do not know thy extent, thy measure, thy energy, thy prowess, thy might, thy origin. O God, O Vishnu, filled with devotion in thee, and depending upon thee with vows and observances, we ever worship thee as the highest Lord, the God of gods. The Rishis, the gods, Gandharvas, the Yakshas, the Rakshasas, the Panagas, the Pisachas, human beings, beasts, birds, reptiles, all these were created by me on earth through thy grace. O thou having the lotus springing from thy navel! O thou of large expansive eyes! O Krishna! O dispeller of all woe, thou art the refuge of all creatures, and thou art their guide. Thou hast the universe for thy mouth. Through thy grace, O Lord of the gods are ever happy. Through thy grace the earth hath always been freed from terrors. Therefore, O thou of large eyes, take birth in the race of Yadu. For the sake of establishing righteousness, for slaying the sons of Diti, and for upholding the universe, do what I have said, O Lord. O Vasudeva, that which is thy supreme mystery, that, O Lord, hath been sung by me through thy grace. Having created the divine Sankarshana out of thy own self by thyself, thou didst then, O Krishna, create thyself as Pradyumna born of thyself. From Pradyumna thou didst then create Aniruddha, who is known as the eternal Vishnu. And it was Aniruddha who created me as Brahma, the upholder of the universe. Created out of Vasudeva's essence, I have therefore been created by thee. Dividing thyself into portions, take birth, O Lord, among human beings. And slaughtering the asuras there for happiness of all the worlds, and establishing righteousness, and winning renown, thou wilt again truly attain to yoga. The regenerate rishis on earth and the gods, O thou of infinite prowess, devoted to thee, sing of thy wondrous self under those names that belong to thee. O thou of excellent arms, all classes of creatures rest on thee, having taken refuge in thee, thou giver of boons. The regenerate ones sing thee as the world's bridge, having no beginning, middle and end, and as possessed of unlimited yoga. Thus ends the 65th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 66, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Bhishma said, then that illustrious deity, the Lord of the worlds, replied unto Brahma in a soft and deep voice, saying, through yoga, O sire, all that is wished by thee is known to me. It will be even as thou wishest. And saying this, he disappeared then and there. Then the gods, rishis and Gandharvas, filled with great wonder and curiosity, all asked the grandsire, saying, who is that one, O Lord, that was worshipped by thy illustrious self with such humility and praised in such high words? We desire to hear. Thus addressed, the illustrious grandsire replied unto all the gods, the regenerate rishis and the Gandharvas in sweet words, saying, he who is called Tat, he who is supreme, he who is existent at present and who will be for all time, he who is the highest self, he who is the soul of beings, and who is the great Lord. I was talking even with his ever cheerful self, ye bulls among gods. The Lord of the universe was solicited by me for the good of the universe, to take his birth among mankind in the family of Vasudeva. I said unto him, for the slaughter of the asuras take thy birth in the world of men. Those Daityas and Rakshasas of fierce form and great strength, that were slain in battle, have been born among men. Indeed, the illustrious and mighty Lord, taking birth in the human womb, will live on the earth, accompanied by Nara. Those ancient and best of rishis, Vis, Nara and Narayana, are incapable of defeat in battle by even all the celestials united together. Of immeasurable effulgence, those rishis Vis, Nara and Narayana, when born together in the world of men, will not be known as such by fools. He from whose self I, Brahman, the Lord of the whole universe, has sprung, that Vasudeva, that supreme God of all the worlds, is worthy of your adoration. Endued with great energy, and bearing the conch, the discus, and the mace, he should never be disregarded as a man, yea best of deities. He is the supreme mystery, the supreme refuge, the supreme Brahma, and the supreme glory. He is without decay, unmanifest, and eternal. He it is who hath been sung as Purusha, though none can comprehend him. The divine artificer hath sung of him as the supreme energy, the supreme felicity, and the supreme truth. Therefore, the Lord Vasudeva of immeasurable prowess should never be disregarded as a man by all the asuras and the gods with Indra at their head. That person of foolish understanding is called a wretch, who from disregard, speaketh of Hrishikesa as only a man. People speak of him as one labouring under darkness, who disregardeth Vasudeva, that yogin of illustrious soul for his entering into a human form. People speak of him as one labouring under darkness who knoweth not that divine personage, that soul of the mobile and the immobile creation, that one bearing the auspicious wheel on his breast, that one of dazzling effulgence, that one from whose navel hath sprung the primeval lotus. He who disregardeth that wearer of the diadem and the Kaustuva gem, that dispeller of fears of his friends, that high-souled one, sinketh in thick darkness. Having known all these truths duly, that Lord of the worlds, viz., Vasudeva, should be adored by every one, yea best of gods. Bhishma continued, having said these words unto those gods and rishis in days of yore, the illustrious grandsire, dismissing them all repaired to his own abode. And the gods and the Gandharvas, and the Munis and the Apsaras also, having listened to those words spoken by Brahman, were filled with delight and repaired to heaven. Even this was heard by me, O sire, from rishis of cultured soul talking in their assembly, of Vasudeva that ancient one. And O thou that art well versed in scriptures, I heard this from Rama, the son of Jamdagni, and Markandeya of great wisdom, and Vyasa and Narada also. Having learnt all this and heard of the illustrious Vasudeva as the eternal Lord, the supreme God of all the worlds, and the great Master, from whom hath sprung Brahman himself, the Father of the universe, why should not that Vasudeva be adored and worshipped by men? Forbidden wert thou before, O sire, by sages of cultured souls, who said unto thee, never go to war with that Vasudeva, armed with bow as also with the Pandavas. This, from folly thou couldst not apprehend. I regard thee therefore as a wicked Raksha. Thou art besides enveloped in darkness. It is for this that thou hatest Govinda and Dhananjaya the son of Pandu, for who else among men would hate the divine Nara and Narayana? It is for this, O king, that I say unto thee that this one is eternal and unfading, pervading the whole universe, unchanging, the ruler, creator and upholder of all, and the truly existent. He it is who upholdeth the three worlds. He is the supreme Lord of all mobile and immobile creatures, and he is the great Master, he is warrior, he is victory, he is victor, and he is the Lord of all nature. O king, he is full of goodness and divested of all the qualities of darkness and passion. There, where Krishna is, there righteousness is, and there is victory where righteousness is. It is by the yoga of his supreme excellence, and the yoga of his self, that the sons of Pandu, O king, are supported. Victory therefore will surely be theirs. He it is that always imparteth to the Pandavas an understanding endued with righteousness, and strength in battle, and he it is that always protecteth them from danger. He is the eternal God, pervading all beings, and ever blessed. He of whom thou hadst asked me is known by the name of Vasudeva. He it is whom Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and Vaisyas and Sudras, having distinctive features of their own, humbly serve and worship with restrained hearts and performing their own duties. He it is who, towards the close of the Dwapara Yuga and the beginning of the Kali Yuga, is sung of with Sankarshana, by believers with devotion. It is that Vasudeva that createth, Yuga after Yuga, the worlds of the gods and the mortals, all cities girt by the sea, and the region of human habitation. Thus ends the 66th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 67, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Duryodhana said, "In all the worlds Vasudeva is spoken of as the Supreme Being. I desire, O grandsire, to know his origin and glory." Bhishma said, "Vasudeva is the Supreme Being. He is the God of all gods. None superior to him of eyes like lotus petals is to be seen, O bull of Bharata's race. Markandeya speaketh of Govinda as the most wonderful and the most high, as the all-being, as the all-soul, as the highest soul, and as the supreme male being. Water, air, and fire, these three were created by him. That divine master and lord of all the worlds created this earth. That supreme being of illustrious soul laid himself down on the waters. And that divine being made up of all kinds of energy slept thereon in yoga. From his mouth he created fire, and from his breath the wind. Of unfading glory, he created from his mouth speech and the waves. It was thus that he created first the worlds and also the gods along with the diverse classes of rishis. And he created decay and death also of all creatures, as well as birth and growth. He is righteousness and of righteous soul. He is the giver of boons and the giver of all our wishes. He is the actor and action, and he is himself the divine master. He first made the past, the present, and the future. He is the creator of the universe. He is of illustrious soul. He is the master possessed of unfading glory. He created Sankarshana, the firstborn of all creatures. He created the divine Sesha, who is known as Sananta and who upholdeth all creatures and the earth with her mountains. Of supreme energy, he it is whom the regenerate ones know by yoga meditation. Sprung from the secretions of his ear, the great Asura known by the name of Madhu, fierce and of fierce deeds and entertaining a fierce intent and about to destroy Brahman, was slain by that supreme being. And O sire, in consequence of Madhu's slaughter, the gods, the Danavas and human beings, and rishis called Janardana the slayer of Madhu. He is the great boar, he is the great lion, and he is the three-stepped Lord. He is the mother and the father of all living creatures. There never was, nor will be any superior to him of eyes like lotus petals. From his mouth he created the Brahmanas, and from his 2 arms the Kshatriyas, and from his thighs, O king, he created the Vaisyas, and from his feet he created the Sudras. One waiting dutifully on him, observant of vows with ascetic austerities on days of the full moon and the new moon, is sure to obtain the divine Kesava, that refuge of all embodied creatures, that essence of Brahma and of Yoga. Kesava is the highest energy, the grandsire of all the worlds. Him, O king, the sages call Hrishikesa, the lord of the senses. Him also should all know as the preceptor, the father and the master. Inexhaustible regions of blessedness are won by him with whom Krishna is gratified. He also who, in a place of fear, seeketh the protection of Kesava, and he who frequently readeth this description, becometh happy and endued with every prosperity. Those men who attain to Krishna are never beguiled. Janardana always saveth those that are sunk in great terrors. Knowing this truly, O Bharata, Yudhishthira with his whole soul, O king, hath sought the shelter of the highly blessed Kesava, the Lord of Yoga, and the Lord of the earth. Thus ends the 67th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 68, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Bhishma said, "Hear from me, O king, this hymn that was uttered by Brahman himself. This hymn was in days of old communicated by regenerate rishis and the gods to men on earth. Narada described thee as the master and the lord of the god of gods and all the sadhyas and the celestials, and as one acquainted with the nature of the creator of the worlds. Markandeya spoke of thee as the past, the present, and the future, and the sacrifice of sacrifices, and the austerity of austerities. The illustrious Bhrigu said of thee that thou art the god of the gods, that thine is the ancient form of Vishnu. Dwaipayana said of thee that thou art Vasudeva of the Vasus, the establisher of Sakra, and the god of gods and all creatures. In days of old, on the occasion of procreating creatures, the sages spoke of thee as Daksha, the father of creation. Angiras said that thou art the creator of all beings. Devala said of thee that the unmanifest all is thy body, and the manifest is in thy mind, and that the gods are all the result of thy breath. With thy heads is pervaded the heavens, and thy 2 arms support the earth. In thy stomach are 3 worlds, and thou art the eternal being. Even thus do men, exalted by asceticism, know thee. Thou art the Sat of Sat, with rishis gratified with sight of self. With royal sages of liberal minds, never retreating from battle and having morality for their highest end, thou, O slayer of Madhu, art the sole refuge. Even thus is that illustrious and supreme being, viz. Hari, adored and worshipped by Sanat Kumar and other ascetics endued with yoga. The truth about Kesava, O sire, is now narrated to thee, both in brief and detail. Turn thy heart in love to Kesava. Sanjaya continued, hearing this sacred story, thy son, O great king, began to regard highly both Kesava and these mighty warriors, viz. The sons of Pandu. Then, O monarch, Bhishma the son of Santanu once more addressed thy son, saying, Thou hast now heard truly, O king, about the glory of the high-souled Kesava and of Nara, about which thou hadst asked me. Thou hast also heard about the object for which both Nara and Narayana have taken their births among men. Thou hast also been told the reason why those heroes are invincible and have never been vanquished in battle, and why also, O king, the sons of Pandu are incapable of being slain in battle by anybody. Krishna beareth great love for the illustrious sons of Pandu. It is for this, O king of kings, that I say, let peace be made with the Pandavas. Restraining thy passions, enjoy thou the earth with thy mighty brothers around thee. By disregarding the divine Nara and Narayana, thou shalt certainly be destroyed. Having said these words, thy sire became silent, O monarch, and dismissing the king, entered his tent. And the king also came back to his own tent, having worshipped the illustrious grandsire. And then, O bull of Bharata's race, he laid himself down on his white bed for passing the night in sleep. Thus ends the 68th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 69, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Sanjaya said, after the night had passed away and the sun had risen, the 2 armies, O king, approached each other for battle. Beholding each other, each rushed in united ranks towards the other, excited with rage and desirous of vanquishing the other. And in consequence of thy evil policy, O king, the Pandavas and the Dhartashtra's thus rushed, cased in mail and forming battle array for striking each other. And the array that Bhishma protected from all sides, O king, was of the shape of a makara. And so the Pandavas also, O king, protected the array they had formed of their troops. Then thy sire Devavrata, O great king, that foremost of warriors, proceeded in advance, supported by a large division of cars. And others, viz. Warriors, infantry, elephants, and cavalry, all followed him, each stationed in the place allotted. And beholding them prepared for battle, the illustrious sons of Pandu arrayed their troops in that invincible and prince of arrays called the Saina. And in the beak of that array shone Bhimasena of great strength. And in its 2 eyes were the invincible Sikhundin and Dhrishtadyumna of Prishata's race. And in the head was the heroic Satyaki of prowess, incapable of being baffled. And in its neck was Arjuna shaking his Gandiva. And in its left wing was the high-souled and blessed Drupada with his son, and supported by an Akshohini of all forces. And the king of the Kekayas, owning an Akshohini, formed the right wing of that array. And in its back were the sons of Draupadi, and Subhadra's son of great prowess. And in its tail was the heroic King Yudhishthira himself, of excellent prowess, supported by his twin brothers. Then in the battle that ensued, Bhima, penetrating the Makara array of the Kauravas through its mouth, and approaching Bhishma, covered him with his shafts. Then in that great battle, Bhishma, possessed of great prowess, shot his mighty weapons, confounding the combatants of the Pandavas disposed in battle array. And when the combatants of the Pandava army were thus confounded, Dhananjaya, speedily proceeding, pierced Bhishma at the van of battle with 1,000 arrows. And counteracting in that conflict, the weapons shot by Bhishma, Arjuna stood ready for the combat, supported by his own division filled with cheerfulness. Then King Duryodhana, that foremost of mighty men, that great warrior, beholding that terrible carnage of his troops and remembering the slaughter of his brothers on the previous day, came quickly towards Bharadwaja's son, and addressing him said, "O preceptor, O sinless one, thou art ever my well-wisher. Relying on thee as also on the grandsire Bhishma, ourselves hope to vanquish without doubt the very gods in battle, let alone the sons of Pandu that are destitute of energy and prowess. Blessed be thou, act in such a way that the Pandavas may be slain." Thus addressed in battle by thy son, Drona penetrated into the Pandava array in the very sight of Satyaki. Then, O Bharata, Satyaki checked the son of Bharadwaja, and thereupon ensued a battle that was fierce in its incidents and awful to behold. Then Bharadwaja's son, excited with rage and endued with great prowess, as if smiling the while, pierced the grandson of Sini with 10 shafts at his shoulder joint. And Bhimasena also, excited with rage, pierced Bharadwaja's son with many shafts, desirous of protecting Satyaki, O king, from Drona, that foremost of all warriors. Then Drona and Bhishma, and Salya also, O sire, excited with rage, covered Bhimasena in that battle with their shafts. Thereupon Abhimanyu, excited with wrath, and the sons of Draupadi, O sire, pierced with their sharp-pointed shafts all those warriors with appraised weapons. Then in that fierce battle, the great bowman Sikhundin rushed against those 2 mighty warriors, viz., Bhishma and Drona, who, excited with rage, had thus fallen upon the Pandavas. Firmly grasping his bow, whose twang resembled the roar of the clouds, that hero, shrouding the very sun with his arrows, quickly covered his antagonists therewith. The grandsire of the Bharatas, however, getting Sikhundin before him, avoided him, remembering the femininity of his sex. Then, O king, urged by thy son, Drona rushed to battle, desirous of protecting Bhishma in that stress. Sikhundin, however, approaching Drona, that foremost of all wielders of weapons, avoided from fear that warrior resembling the blazing fire that appears at the end of the Yuga. Then, O king, thy son with a large force, desirous of winning great glory, proceeded to protect Bhishma. And the Pandavas also proceeded, O king, firmly setting their hearts upon victory, and the battle then that took place between the combatants of both armies, desirous of victory and fame, was fierce and highly wonderful, resembling that in days of yore between the gods and Danavas. Thus ends the 69th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. Section 70, Bhishmavada Parva continued. Sanjaya said, Then Bhishma the son of Santanu fought fiercely, desirous of protecting the sons from the fear of Bhimasena. And the battle that then took place between the kings of the Kaurava and the Pandava armies was awful in the extreme and destructive of great heroes. And in that general engagement, so fierce and terrible, tremendous was the din that arose touching the very heavens. And in consequence of the shrieks of huge elephants and the neigh of steeds and the blare of conches and beat of drums, the uproar was deafening. Fighting for the sake of victory, the mighty combatants endued with great prowess roared at one another like bulls in a cowpen. And heads cut off in that battle with keen-edged shafts, incessantly falling, created, O bull of Bharatas race, the appearance of a stony shower in the welkin. Indeed, O bull of Bharata's race, innumerable were the heads lying on the field of battle, decked with earrings and turbans and resplendent with ornaments of gold. And the earth was covered with limbs cut off with broad-headed shafts, with heads decked with earrings, and with arms adorned with ornaments. And in a moment the whole field was strewn over with bodies cased in mail, with arms decked with ornaments, with faces beautiful as the moon and having eyes with reddish corners, and with every limb poking, of elephants, steeds and men. And the dust raised by the warriors looked like a thick cloud, and the bright implements of destruction like flashes of lightning. And the noise made by the weapons resembled the roar of thunder. And that fierce and awful passage at arms, O Bharata, between the Kurus and the Pandavas caused a very river of blood to flow there. And in that terrible, fierce and awful battle, causing the hair to stand on end, Kshatriya warriors incapable of defeat incessantly poured their arrowy showers. And the elephants of both the army and the enemies, afflicted with those arrowy showers, shrieked aloud and ran hither and thither in fury. And in consequence of the twang of bows endued with great energy, of fierce and heroic warriors excited with fury, and of flapping of their bowstrings against their leathern fences, nothing could be distinguished. And all over the field, which looked like a lake of blood, headless trunks stood up, and the kings bent upon slaying their foes rushed to battle. And brave warriors of immeasurable energy and possessed of arms resembling stout bludgeons, slew one another with arrows and darts and maces and scimitars. And elephants, pierced with arrows and deprived of riders to guide them with hooks, and steeds destitute of riders, wildly ran in all directions. And many warriors, O best of the Bharatas, belonging to both thy army and that of the foe, deeply pierced with shafts, jumped up and fell down. And in that encounter between Bhima and Bhishma, heaps of arms and heads, as also of bows and maces and spiked clubs and hands and thighs, of legs and ornaments and bracelets, were seen lying over the field. And here and there over the field, O king, were seen large bodies of unretreating elephants and steeds and cars. And the Kshatriya warriors, urged on by fate, slew one another with maces, swords, lances, and straight shafts. And others, endued with great heroism and accomplished in fight, encountered one another with their bare arms that resembled spiked clubs made of iron. And other heroic warriors of thy army, engaged with the combatants of the Pandava host, fought on, slaying one another with clenched fists and knees, and slaps and blows, O king. And with the fallen and falling warriors and those weltering in agony on the ground, the field of battle everywhere became, O king, terrible to behold. And car warriors, deprived of the cars and grasping excellent swords, rushed at one another, desirous of slaughter. Then King Duryodhana, surrounded by a large division of Kalingas and placing Bhishma ahead, rushed towards the Pandavas. And so the Pandava combatants also, supporting Vrikodara and owning fleet animals, rushed excited with rage against Bhishma. Thus ends the 70th section in the Bhishmavada Parva of the Bhishma Parva. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe to be notified of when new audiobooks are uploaded. Thank you for listening and learning. Shanti.